Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 880. Numerologists go to town on that one. For the 17th of August 2025, Richard Saunders coming to you from a bright and sunny Sydney, Australia. Coming up on this week's show, we wonder what the world would be like without skepticism, without the modern skeptical movement. I wonder what it would be like. We play a sort of a mind game, a thought experiment, and we think, no skepticism? Would we all be listening to other podcasts? Maybe we'd all be listening to numerology podcasts. Anyway, that's coming up at the top of the show, the world without the modern skeptical movement. And following that, it's You Can Count on Adrienne with Adrienne Hill, and this week Adrienne interviews Karen Bijkersma. This is part one of a two-part interview, and this is all about relationship gurus online. And, of course, that's something that deserves a little bit of skepticism, a little bit of caution. Following that, it's the Australian Skeptics Newsletter, read by Adrienne Hill and written by our new news editor, Dee. Then to round off the show, in the Trove Archives, we look at Jinx. Not Jinx the cat, but Jinx, being jinxed, having a jinx on you. A jinxed vessel, as it happens, turns up, or don't jinx this, that sort of thing. Now, a couple of announcements before we get into the show. October the 4th and the 5th in Melbourne, we have Skepticon 2025, the 41st Australian Skeptics National Convention, and that will be held at the Forum Theatre, University of Melbourne. For more information and to get your tickets, go to skepticon.org.au. And I'm pleased to say that will be hosted, as the convention was last year, that will be hosted by Alanta Colley. And speaking of Melbourne, tomorrow night at the Skeptics Cafe, there will be a showing of James Randi in Australia, the 45th anniversary special edition. And all going well, I will be appearing via video link to talk about that and take questions. And the website for that is vicskeptics.wordpress.com. I'll add a link in this week's show notes. Now that starts around 6 p.m. for dinner, and that's in the function room at the Stolberg Hotel, 197 Plenty Road, Preston. Well, that's enough for me at the moment. It's time for me to run downstairs and have some leftover spaghetti on toast. Ew. Leftover spaghetti on toast? No, I think I'll make some fresh spaghetti on toast. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. A couple of weeks ago at Skeptics in the Pub, we showed the movie James Randi in Australia, all about water divining and water dowsing, made 45 years ago. And one of the questions that came up after the screening was, well, what was the point? I mean, people still believe in water divining and water dowsing. So was this all just a waste of time? Which really made me think about a world, a different world, say, where there was no modern skeptical movement. The modern skeptical movement has its roots probably over 60 years ago, with James Randi, of course, offering a check, a prize, in around 1965, I think it was, and then really taking off in the mid-70s with Psychop, now CSI, and later on in the early 80s with the Australian Skeptics, and many more people. Figures such as, the prominent figures such as Carl Sagan, James Randi, and so on, and organisations such as CSI, the Australian Skeptics, the James Randi Educational Foundation, and more around the world, our friends in the UK, for example. So we can imagine that in a world without the skeptical movement, scientific literacy, may well be lower, not just because fewer people would understand science, but because there would be fewer voices connecting scientific principles to everyday claims. Modern skepticism has helped translate complex research into understandable explanations for why, for example, homeopathy cannot work beyond placebo effect, or why astrology's predictions fail under controlled testing. I mean, it's all very well to say I'm skeptical of homeopathy, or I don't believe it works, or I'm skeptical of astrology and I don't believe it works, but you have to understand why. You have to have good reasoning to back up your statements. And the modern skepticism movement has given those reasons to us through examination and testing and putting forward good hypothesis. And we must remember that things like homeopathy, astrology, and so on, pseudoscience, thrives in the absence of critical resistance. Without skeptics and skeptical organizations, the marketplace of ideas would tilt even further towards the sensational and the unverified. Popular media, which already tends to favor mystery over mundane explanations, although I think sometimes the real explanation is far more interesting, would face even less pressure to correct inaccuracies. It can be hard at the best of times. Television programs promoting ghosts, psychic detectives, and UFO conspiracies would dominate without any counterbalance in the public sphere. And surely one of the best counterbalances to the UFO conspiracy sensationalism would be the UFO movie They Don't Want You to See. Would this extend beyond entertainment into policy, one wonders? Politicians, free from the risk of fact-checking by skeptical voices, could easily incorporate more pseudoscience into legislation. Debates over climate change, genetically modified organisms, and public health could be swayed by emotionally charged but faulty narratives. The skeptical movement has influenced how critical thinking is taught, and we think about things like creationism, especially here in Australia, where the skeptical movement was in the forefront of battling that some decades ago. And we think of the resources produced by the skeptical movement, like this podcast, for example, books, magazines, public talks, conventions, and so on, and giving teachers tools to illustrate logical fallacies, like the ones so well done by Michelle Bijkersma, which you can find on the homepage of the Skeptic Zone. All these help to give tools to people. Students might learn the periodic table, but never be encouraged to apply skeptical inquiry to real-world claims. And I think of the show I did for many years called The Mystery Investigators, which was a school-based show teaching the scientific method through examining claims of the paranormal. We can imagine this would make the population more susceptible to conspiracy theories. People without training in evaluating evidence might be easily swayed by charismatic misinformation peddlers. Well, they are, sadly, to an extent. In the absence of a well-publicized skeptical counter-narrative, conspiracy theories like moon landing, flat earth belief, chemtrail, paranoia could enjoy widespread mainstream acceptance. Is it a matter of safeguarding? Humans have a natural inclination towards pattern recognition and agency detection. We might say we are storytelling, pattern-seeking animals. We seek connections, sometimes where none exist. Hence conspiracy theories. The modern skeptical movement has provided crucial reinforcement for resisting these impulses when they lead to false conclusions. Without that reinforcement, magical thinking could become the default cultural mode. I remember James Randi used to talk a lot about magical thinking, like wishing. I mean, we all have things in life we very much regret, and often we could wish we could have that week back again and not do the foolish things we've done. Magical thinking. I guess in a way, it's natural. But if everybody could take the week back and correct their errors, I don't think time would progress at all. The absence of skepticism could encourage the rise of charismatic gurus. even more than they are now, offering spiritual solutions to practical problems, faith healers promising cures, and cults attracting vulnerable followers. The regulatory environment might be lax, fewer voices to call for evidence-based consumer protection. And I think of the power balance wristbands as a case in point where the modern skeptical movement was able to come in for the consumer when the product simply did not work. Now, modern skepticism is also a tool for journalists. We provide experts on matters such as the paranormal or UFOs, for example. It's not that they always seek us out for comment, but we're there when needed. Skeptical organizations maintain databases, archives. I have quite an extensive archive I've collected over a quarter of a century, and networks of scientists and specialists who can respond to media inquiries. Without these, journalists might rely more heavily on self-proclaimed experts and press releases from those making claims. Again, we're not always sought out for comment, but we're there if needed. A lack of balance could skew public perception. For example, a TV news segment on a psychic medium might present their claims uncritically, which does happen, without mentioning any history of failed predictions or known techniques of cold reading. And of course, I think of the Great Australian Psychic Prediction Project, where we can point to an extensive body of work to counter claims that people can, using psychic powers, look into the future. And of course, the modern skeptical movement has contributed to the body of scientific knowledge around the world via investigations published in magazines, and again, like these podcasts and our friends over at Skeptoid, of course, the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, the ESP, the Squaring the Strange, and our friends in the UK, Skeptics with a K, and many others that have come and gone. Without this network, without having something there, individuals who are naturally skeptical might feel isolated. They would be drowned out by a louder chorus of pseudo-scientific podcasts and so on, of which, of course, there are many. If we take a broader view, the absence of a modern skeptical movement would mean a great deal of trouble in combating misinformation, especially in developing nations where misinformation about health, agriculture, and the environment already poses serious threats. Without international skeptical collaboration, harmful myths such as those surrounding HIV/AIDS treatment or genetically modified crops could flourish unchecked. The internet, rather than being a contested ground between misinformation and fact-checking, would be an almost entirely one-sided arena where sensational claims are propagated without any resistance. Social media algorithms optimized for engagement would push pseudoscientific content to the top, shaping public discourse around falsehoods. Again, much more than they do now, I think. Now, of course, without the modern skeptical movement, society might still continue without descending into total irrationality. Human curiosity and scientific institutions would remain, but the balance could well shift to uncritical acceptance of extraordinary claims. Public health would be more at risk. Political decision-making, less evidence-based, education less focused on critical thinking, and media more willing to promote unverified stories. The skeptical movement never has, or never really could, eradicate pseudoscience, but it has provided what we might call a cultural immune system, a set of habits, institutions, and voices that challenge misinformation before it becomes entrenched. Remove that immune system, and the body of society may well become more vulnerable to every infection of a falsehood. And I round this off with the words of my friend Professor Paul Willis, the famous TV journalist and paleontologist, who said about the creationists he used to battle, "We can't really win against these people, but we can lose. But I like to think, in the case of creationism anyway, the modern skeptical movement, well, here in Australia, has made huge advancements and victories in getting that system out of the classrooms. There we are, a little bit of imagination, a little bit of musing. What would the world be like without the modern skeptical movement? I guess we could counter that with saying, what would the world be like without any pseudoscience? Now that I find hard to imagine. There are many psychics and channelers who claim they are in contact with the Galactic Federation, but we have uncovered the truth. The Adventures of Psychic Penny and the Galactic Federation, Series 1. A daring cosmic space adventure starring Richard Saunders, Kat MacLeod, Lara Benham, Maynard, Kathy Reitmeyer, and Adrienne Hill as Psychic Penny. Search for The Adventures of Psychic Penny. You can count on Adrienne with Adrienne Hill.
Hello everyone, this is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios in Calgary, Canada. Today I have a very special guest all the way from Melbourne, Australia, Karen Bijkersma. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you very much, Adrienne. It's great to be here.
I got to watch a talk you did that was fascinating. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
I did a talk in Melbourne at Skeptics Cafe about my recent experience being heartbroken and being a Facebook user and using Facebook as a bit of a resource, as I do, using it for a little bit of research on how to deal with my broken heart, how to mend, how to learn from that experience. And, I love a bit of research. So whatever happens in my life, I will be researching it. And I came across a few really good relationship sort of coaches, professional doctors, and people with good credentials who had some good advice for me. So I was happy to find that. And then that took me in a whole kind of strange, completely bonkers direction.
Yeah, so the Facebook ads, I guess, started changing, didn't they?
Yes, that's right. So we've all noticed that our news feeds have been changing. There are more and more ads, and whatever you might talk about in the vicinity of your phone or shopping for red shoes online, you will notice on your news feed that you will start getting ads for red shoes or vacuum cleaners or whatever it is. I bought a book that a friend of mine recommended about relationships, attachment theory. It's a whole other subject, but something psychologists using as a guide for people navigating relationships. And so Facebook was aware that I bought this book on relationships, and therefore I must be bombarded with related advertising material.
Yeah, and some of it became very quickly not very good.
Correct, yes. Well, I was happy with the book. I was happy with the first set of coaches that I started seeing, and I soon found a couple of favourites and I followed those. They had some good advice, but obviously Facebook algorithms picked up that here was a topic that Karen was interested in, and perhaps I'd be interested in a few other types of relationship gurus and advisors as well.
This next group was not as qualified, correct?
So I started getting ads for celebrity coaches, much to my surprise. I hadn't been seeking them out, but they sought me out. And there were three in particular that really stood out to me. And as a skeptic, of course, I wanted to see their credentials before I paid them any attention. And that was quite an astonishing discovery to see that these massive, commercial relationship gurus with huge followings actually have no psychology credentials.
Yeah, and can you name some of them? I'd never heard of them before, but they have huge followings all around the world, from my understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. I hadn't heard of them before either. The first was Matthew Hussey, who's a dating coach and New York Times bestselling author, and he runs 7-hour seminars called Get the Guy, which will fill a huge auditorium with women, 800 plus women, and one of them was saying that she was disappointed. It finished with a really long ad for his $4,000 5-day retreat in Florida. So she felt like it was just a really big sort of infomercial in the end.
Right.
And he offers 1-hour coaching sessions for $10,000.
Which is insane.
It is insane. How life-changing can his information be, especially when he has no credentials?
Right.
And in Australian dollars, that's nearly $16,000 for 1 hour.
Yeah, and it would be very similar for Canadian dollars because our dollar is about the same as yours.
And so he started his coaching business as a teenager and doesn't appear to have any formal qualifications or credentials, but he's got 3.26 million followers on YouTube alone, let alone his other social medias.
It's insane.
And you notice on the ads that they really feature, the face. These are, attractive, charismatic people. Mm-hmm. And there are two other main guys who look very similar, and it's really, advertising via their lovely face.
I love that.
Because they are good looking and charismatic, mm-hmm. and they do project a certain look and expression that inspires confidence.
Right. And attracts women, obviously.
And attracts women, absolutely. Jimmy Knowles is another. He's a relationship educator and content creator, to quote him. And his credentials stem purely from and he brags about this, purely from his personal life as a husband and father.
And then he cheated on her, right? He's cheated on his wife?
He did. And you'd think that would be, the end, or that would at least put a little dent in his following. But no, he managed to completely turn that around and own that. And that now gives him even more credentials for speaking from that perspective. So he's really put a positive spin on that somehow. And he still currently has around 1.5 million followers on YouTube. And then there's the other socials as well.
Yeah. And I'm guessing he sells things too, right? Sells workshops and sells advice.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, they all do. The Facebook advertising is just the top of the marketing funnel. Mm. And you can go down, a whole funnel, a whole spiral to get you to attend their seminars, buy their books. And of course, there's the big sell at the end of the seminars. And that they're also very happy to get your email address and be in contact with you and keep pumping out the promotions.
But I think you mentioned in your talk that you've had to change your email because you were being bombarded with so much stuff from these people.
I did joke about that. I didn't actually get around to doing it, but I was feeling like I would definitely have to, because it really seemed to be the aim of most of these dodgy practitioners on Facebook. They want email address so they can market to you endlessly. Mm-hmm. And I come from an advertising and marketing background, and recently I've done social media marketing. So I've got an insight into how it works. So if they've got your email address, they can continue the dialogue with you, and at some point, hopefully, you will crack.
You'll see something that you will be interested in, and that hooks you in and pulls you in.
Absolutely. And the fact that you've made that first initial contact, ultimately, a lot of them are also after your credit card details, which I was very careful not to share. But yes, my inbox did become a bit of a mess for a while. My news feed became an absolute disaster as this went on and on, getting worse and worse. But I did want to mention one Aussie copycat.
Ooh.
He's been coming along at the same time as the other two, Matthew Hussey and Jimmy Knowles. Luke Hawkins, he's our Aussie rag to riches celebrity coach, and he espouses himself as a not only a relationship guru, but a master of neurotransformational therapy, which is a trauma healing therapy. And so this is the sort of advertising I was seeing too.
Very sciencey sounding. He's making it sciencey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's really based on neuro-linguistic programming, which has received a bad rap. So now he's simply repackaged that,
Right.
basically. So NTT is the new NLP. In his ad, he says, join our waiting list for free $7,780 life coach certification training. So it sounds like joining the waiting list is free.
Yeah, it's a weird sentence, isn't it?
It could be taken as it's worth $7,780, but you're getting it free.
Yeah.
That's not the case. So that's very tricky language there. He famously started from rock bottom emotionally and financially, as if this is the credential. One of the other ones said that as well. The one, Matthew Hussey, saying he started as a teenager. This one saying he started from rock bottom and also very young. But as if that gives you extra credibility when you have none. Or actually, it's all they have to go on. So that's what they run with. And he coached himself to ultimately create what he hails as the #1 life coaching school in Australia with a 7-figure annual salary. And he's got his whole journey on his website. And I guess it makes them very relatable if they've come from a very ordinary of sort of sad beginnings. Then if they can do it, you can too.
And you can also become rich, correct? You can also gain the same wealth that he has.
That's right. If they can do it, so can you. And Luke Hawkins offers certification training. So you can part with money to get a certificate, and then you can always sell these programs, these systems, these certificates. And I guess that's what's making them a lot of their money. When you go to Luke Hawkins' website, it opens straight away on scenes at his seminars with crowds of, enraptured women. And the pop-up, want a new career, learn how to make $10,000 every month in the next 90 days as a certified life coach, guaranteed. So it's very much about selling these certificates and, you can be successful too in just 90 days. So that's really the angle.
That's crazy. And I wonder what the guarantee actually is.
Absolutely. And how they measure that. And do you get any money back? And there was actually, at the time I was preparing my presentation for Skeptics Cafe, a newspaper article published on our ABC News network. There was a really good article by journalist Nathan Morris with the very lengthy headline, "Life coaching is on the rise, but amid promises of big money, experts say some are running certificate mills." And he looked into this practitioner, Luke Morris, who addressed the issue and said to the journalist that he was not a qualified psychologist, relationship counsellor, or mental health care professional. And to ensure the well-being of his clients, he employs trained professionals. But the real money's in the certificates. And there was an interview also with Dr. Alexandra Stein, who escaped a cult when she was young, and she's gone on to be a world-leading cult expert. And she got sucked into the Luke Hawkins, even though she's very much aware. So we are all vulnerable at times.
For sure.
She paid to attend his seminars, and she parted with $12,000 to join his Inner Circle membership, which she couldn't get back. She tried.
Wow. And I wonder too, you mentioned that he says that there are actually qualified people under him, but he doesn't name them or say where they're at.
Exactly. And presumably they undertook that 90-day training to become a certified life coach. Are they his therapist? Because that doesn't sound very helpful.
No.
It doesn't inspire confidence.
No. Well, and then there's people that aren't getting the proper treatment that they require or deserve.
Exactly. And it's dangerous.
Yeah.
You really can be messing with people's mental health. It's very reckless and dangerous for sure.
Yeah, it's very problematic. Just the mental health part is very concerning.
Absolutely. And for myself, I was not impressed that here I was in a very vulnerable state, seeking information, seeking support, and I'm being bombarded with these celebrity coaches when I was in genuine need of, information and support. It's very predatory. I was really unimpressed.
And you had some tools already to see through it and see that this was not something that was going to be helpful. But not everybody has those tools or is aware of this issue.
Exactly. I have a degree in visual communications. I have a marketing advertising background. I've been doing this for 33 years. And so I can see it when I'm presented, but I don't assume I'm completely impervious. I think that's a danger.
Correct.
To assume it can't happen to you. Mm-hmm. I also think I'm very good at relationships, but hey, that heartbreak, that breakup, that happened to me too. So none of us are infallible in life.
Exactly. Well, and after these people, this was bad enough, but it got progressively worse, didn't it?
It did. I mean, that's really just the tip of the iceberg there.
Well, I think this is a good place to end this part of the interview. In the next part, we will dive deeper into the path of social media algorithm madness that Karen discovered. Until next time, this is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios in Calgary, Canada.
You're bright, you're capable, you're educated. So why did you say yes to Mike, the personal trainer? Just because he's ripped does not mean he's good husband material. Also, a year into marriage, his abs have given up and so has he. Being smart doesn't mean being immune to bad decisions. We all have blind spots. We all have biases. Critical thinking shines a light on them so they stop running the show. To upgrade your smarts with insight, tune into the Why Smart Women podcast.
Hello, everybody. This is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios in Calgary, Canada, and I'm going to read the highlights from the Australian Skeptics Newsletter. This is newsletter number 228. Now, don't you forget, you can sign up to this newsletter at skeptics.com.au and get the full report, complete with all the links every other week, right into your inbox. But now, let's see what our new news editor, Dee, has for us this time. Hi all, says Dee. Much of the skeptical stories in the last couple of weeks has been particularly focused on the ever-diminishing vaccine situation globally, and particularly the US. Social media scams and misinformation campaigns, as well as psychics, making the rounds. In other news, tickets for our annual skeptical convention, or Skepticon 2025, are on sale now, held in Melbourne this year on the weekend of October 4th through 5th. In the meantime, read on. D. Okay, D, I'll do just that. Position: Skeptics Online Content Manager. Australian Skeptics is expanding our online presence via a global, content-rich website. We are looking for a person to be our content editorial manager. All content will take a skeptical, i.e. critical thinking approach to claims of pseudoscience, the paranormal, and the implications of this approach more broadly. We foresee the position as part-time and would expect the manager to have some understanding of the areas covered by Australian skeptics. The position entails establishing a list of content providers, short and long articles, processing submissions, possibly generating original copy, liaising with website manager and developers for posting on an international site. Please contact nsw@skeptics.com.au for expressions of interest. Tickets are now available for Skepticon 2025. The 41st Australian Skeptics Annual National Convention, the 12th Skeptics Convention to be held in Melbourne, will be held at the Forum Theatre, University of Melbourne, over the weekend of October 4th through 5th. The venue is a few steps from the new Parkville Underground train station. There will also be a Friday night meet and greet on the evening of October 3rd, and a gala dinner on the evening of Saturday, October 4th. The speakers list is steadily growing, with the current lineup including science education and communicators Melanie Tracek-King and Professor Dave Explains, Farina. Both will be appearing virtually from the U.S. Tickets for the convention and/or the dinner are available on the Skepticon website. Sovereign citizen anti-vax lawyer struck off. Lawyer Nathan Buckley, a long-standing anti-vax and pro-sovereign citizen campaigner and failed political candidate, has been removed from the role of Australian lawyers for unsatisfactory professional conduct and professional misconduct. RFK Jr. cuts $500 million to mRNA vaccine funding. RFK Jr.'s U.S. Health Department slashed $500 million in awards, contracts, and research funding for a range of mRNA investment projects. Quote, "The data show these vaccines fail to protect effectively against upper respiratory infections like COVID and flu," end quote. The unjustified justification goes. Dr. Karl Krushelnicki plans to release a chatbot to challenge climate skeptics. Dr. Karl, who is a supporter of skeptics' activities, plans to develop an AI chatbot in order to combat recurring climate misinformation. It seems like an appropriate use of technology powered by solar to offset AI's concerning emissions. Blatant plug. Skeptical botanist separating fact from fiction. Tim Entwistle, former head of the Botanical Gardens in Melbourne, which are beautiful by the way, as well as being a longtime skeptic and occasional contributor to The Skeptic, has published a book of 50 essays looking at a range of botanical myths and interesting aspects about our floral friends, including a couple of essays that first appeared in The Skeptic. The book is published by CSIRO and available from all good bookstores, and no doubt a few lesser ones as well. Special events. Global Skeptics in the Pub. It's going to be 24 hours of around-the-world skeptical presentations, starting in New Zealand at 7 p.m., then Australia, East Coast at 7 p.m., then the West Coast at 7 p.m. You get the picture. Items of interest. Featured story. A return of the haunted doll. No sooner does the story of Annabelle, the devil doll that doesn't kill people, fade from the headlines than the plot thickens. Super popular, in quotes, comedian Matt Rife and a colleague have bought Ed and Lorraine Warren's home and museum, which includes the doll. Needless to say, dire warnings were made. Apparently, this is a part of a haunted doll fad. There are dolls that scratch everyone and others that buy things on Alexa. Apparently. The return of ABBA. Here we go again. A so-called renowned psychic, is there any other sort? Predicts that the Swedish superstars will return in real life for another go, despite the quartet saying they won't. Silliest story of the week. Paranormal medium warns of having mirrors facing your bed. The Mirror UK ironically carries a story on a TikTok medium who told her followers that having a mirror in your bedroom lets in harmful spirits from the afterlife. Quote, "There could be something that isn't particularly nice waiting on the other side." End quote. This is a chilling warning, though possibly not so great for the newspaper's circulation. Sillier story of the week. Queen Elizabeth II participated in seance to excise Princess Diana's ghost. As if the gossip about the royal family hating Diana wasn't bad enough, they wouldn't even let her spirit rest peacefully in her estate. Story of the week. Bigfoot jogger sighting. Oh dear. There is some new footage capturing Bigfoot unmistakably going for an afternoon jog. Now, if you squint really hard, you might be able to see how far these journalists are reaching. And that's all for the newsletter this time. Now, don't forget to grab your tickets for Skepticon 2025. It's going to be a skeptical extravaganza you won't want to miss. I know personally that Psychic Penny endorses this event. But before I leave, I wanted to discuss not a Canadian word, but a word I keep hearing Annie McCubbin and her guests quite often use on her podcast, Why Smart Women. They keep referring to cookers. At first, I thought they were referring to an appliance that heats food. This, as it turns out, is one of many possible definitions for the word, but definitely not what Annie means. According to UrbanDictionary.com, a cooker can also be an attractive person, someone who often cooks, someone who often smokes marijuana, and along those same lines, someone who is often high, someone who really frustrates you, wasting your time, and then finally in Australia, and the definition that Annie is using, an anti-vaxxer who often also believes in conspiracy theories, which is someone who is fully cooked. Thanks, Annie, for a wonderful podcast where not only do I learn about interesting conspiracies and issues, but some interesting words as well. If you haven't already done so, I recommend you check out Why Smart Women. Until next time, this is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios in Calgary, Canada. Here we go again. My, how can I resist it?
This is Ben Radford
and Celestia Ward,
coming to you on the Skeptic Zone podcast, one of our favorite skeptical shows.
Back on our podcast, Squaring the Strange, we cover topics like cryptids, ghost stories, and other mysterious phenomena.
If you like tales of the strange and unraveling them to find out the origins, the psychology, and the allure of the weird, well, you might like Squaring the Strange.
New episodes drop twice a month, and our backlog includes folklore, true crime mysteries, psychics, superstitions, conspiracies, panics, urban legends, and more.
Find us on all the popular podcast feeds, and if you like us, subscribe.
No, subscribe first and download like 200 episodes, then decide later if you like us.
Yeah, either way.
Now it's time once again to go back to those archives at Trove and other associated online newspaper resources, sometimes even physical. Normally at Trove, trove.nla.gov.au. And this week I thought, because we often look at things like superstitions, I thought we'd look at the term Jinx, Jinx. Now, when I was growing up, I remember in school, if two people said something at the same time, one would yell out Jinx, and then I'm not sure what would happen. Oh, the other person couldn't talk for a while, or something like that when I was a little kid. Maybe something similar happened when you were at school. Let's have a look to see what Wiki says about Jinx. Jinx! Curse attracting bad luck in superstition and folklore. A jinx, Jinx, or Jynx, in popular superstition and folklore, is a curse or the attribute of attracting bad or negative luck. Examples of jinxing in the 21st century press include the suggestion that a ship might be jinxed. The connection was made with two cruise lines, the MS Queen Victoria and the Emerald Princess, after misfortunes. In the 20th century, the Australian aircraft carrier HMAS Melbourne was sometimes said to be jinxed, having twice struck a friendly ship with considerable loss of life. Etymology. The online etymology dictionary states that jinx, meaning a charm or spell, was in usage in English as early as the 1690s. The same source states that jinx, with that specific spelling, that's Jinx, was first attested in American English in 1911. And it goes on, but later it says, in sports, one of the uses of the word jinx has been in the context of baseball in the short history of the Jinx, 1910. Later a collection in the book The Jinx, Stories of the Diamond, 1911. So there we are, vaguely and basically, and, I guess in modern usage it means bad luck. A bad luck situation or a happening caused by something or other. Also listed are fictional characters Little Jinx, an Archie Comics character, Jinx, DC Comics, a DC Comics book character, Agent Jinx, James Bond. There are various films called Jinx or The Jinx. And indeed there are some people who were called Jinx either by birth or that was their adopted name, as in Jinx Dawson, singer with the American band Coven. And I imagine there are certain pets out there, dogs and cats, probably called Jinx. But let's have a look at what the Evening Independent on the 13th of August 1937 had to say. And where is this from, the Evening Independent? I don't have the city or the state listed here. Nevertheless, it's from North America. Under the broad heading of Superstition Smashers Defy Friday the 13th Jinx, Wielding, West Virginia, August 13, AP. 13 hoodoo-smashing members of the Anti-Superstition Society met in the eerie hours before dawn today, spilt salt, walked under ladders, raised umbrellas, and emerged to the chorus, quote, "It's the bunk," end quote. Unsuccessful in finding a haunted house for the traditional Friday the 13th session, they gathered in the office of the Grand Smasher Edward McKee, who started things by breaking a mirror. The omen-defying feats preceded the election of a new Grand Smasher, for McKee had grown weary of thinking up new superstitions to flout. Although the chartered group of 13 has increased to 25 since the first meeting in an abandoned house 4 years ago, only 13 attended today to select Carl Saylor, Ohio County Assessor, as their leader. To Henry Fugue, a druggist, fell the important job of Keeper of the Black Cat, the club's mascot and veteran of all meetings. Weird doings of the Society will be recorded from now on by court reporter William Brimmerman, Keeper of the Black Book. And the next heading says, Friday the 13th Jinx in absence here. St. Petersburg was apparently jinxless today, up to the time the Independent went to press. despite the admonition of a number of highly superstitious persons. Although it was Friday the 13th, Building Inspector John W. Wallman failed to get excited about the creaking old City Hall, which was propped up last year when it developed several large cracks. A reporter discussed condemnation action jokingly. There may have been some mirrors broken. There may have been some stray, dusty kittens. There may have been some falling buckets of paint from uprise ladders. But if there were any such phenomena, there was no report. And above all, the weather was perfect. Nobody had a reason to stay home. And now we turn to the pages of the Gadston Times. Again, I don't have the city where that's from. Dated the 12th of August 1982. Barely 43 years ago. Friday the 13th, Jinx. Superstition said vital psychological function. Tuscaloosa, Associated Press. If you are among those who spent each Friday the 13th avoiding ladders and black cats, take heart. A University of Alabama behavioral scientist says such superstitions can be good for you. From thinking Friday the 13th unlucky to more individual idiosyncrasies, such as the fear of wearing white shoelaces, humans have many superstitions, according to William Dressler, assistant professor of behavioral science. Superstitions can serve a vital psychological function, he said in a recent interview. You can reduce the tension associated with your own inability to achieve what you want to achieve by using supernatural beliefs to explain your misfortune. Based on his own studies of superstitious beliefs in the United States and the West Indies, Dressler has concluded that those who are deprived of the lifestyle they desire are the most likely to be superstitious. They could blame their bad luck or lack of success on a ghost or spirit. Even superstitions like Friday the 13th are available to individuals to explain the why me question. Why was I unsuccessful today? People are more likely to turn to unusual or supernatural beliefs in times of increased stress, Dressler says. Very often, stresses occur that people may have no control over, such as the loss of employment. Sometimes supernatural beliefs can help an individual assume psychological control of these types of situations. Dressler said the added stresses of armed conflict and economic hardship in today's world are encouraging more people to turn to the supernatural. People are now intensifying their beliefs in occultism and other things we normally label as superstitious, Dressler said. Those beliefs are on the rise, despite the fact that many in our society are uncomfortable with such beliefs because of our scientific and technological sophistication. Astrology, which is becoming more widely accepted in American society, is a good example of a superstition that fulfills the need in one's life, Dressler says. Studies show that individuals who believe in the validity of horoscopes are those who feel they are in control of their lives. Well, sort of more in the vein of superstitions there than jinxes exactly, but I think you get the idea. Well, let's go now darting around the 20th century. Here we go. The Lighgow Mercury, which is a little town I used to live in many years ago, west of Sydney in the mountains. And we have something here from the 31st of August, 1951. Wedding jinx. District first baseman Ted Waldrock agrees that weddings and baseball don't mix, and none know better than he. Last year, Ted's team, Pirates No. 2, played a semi-final the day he was married, the match beginning just as Ted walked down the aisle. This year, Pirates No. 2 are minor premiers and will meet Pirates No. 1 in Saturday's final. Ted suddenly discovered his sister was being married at 2:30 p.m., half an hour before the final is due to start. Ted has remained silent about the matter, but his teammates are of the opinion that his formal attire for the occasions will cover his baseball uniform. What sort of story is that? Oh well. Now from the Newcastle Sun from the 22nd of October 1949. Golf champion defies Jinx. Sydney. National golf champion Miss Pat Borthwick, player 1 for the Australian team to meet New Zealand next month, will again defy superstition and wear lots of green clothes for her matches. Miss Borthwick horrified her supporters by turning out in green socks and sweater to play Mrs. E.J. Gowing in the final in the state title event. In the final of the national title against Miss Marlene Bishop of Western Australia, she donned a light green striped jumper. She won both titles. And now from the Toowoomba Chronicle and Darling Downs Gazette. Wow. Of the 11th of March 1954. Jinx trip. London, Wednesday. The 23,696-ton Orient liner Orion docked in Tilbury yesterday after a 3-month Jinx trip to Australia and back, during which 4 people died and 2 disappeared. 3 of those dead were passengers. An inquiry will be held on board into the disappearance of the bosun's mate, Henry Haldecker, 27, when the ship was near Arden on her homeward journey a fortnight ago. So some unfortunate events, and the result was it was labelled a Jinx trip. And finally from the Guyra Argus, dated the 9th of November 1950. Jinx. Sailors, and this type is very poorly reproduced. It's an old, a badly reproduced copy here, but I'll do my best. Jinx. Sailors are traditionally superstitious, but the British Admiralty's Sea Lords and Commissioners apparently are no exception. They have decided that His Majesty's ships will never again be named after reptiles, because during World War II, 16 ships called Cobra, Crocodile, Chameleon, Viper, Rattlesnake, etc. were sunk by the enemy. As a result, the names for 68 new minesweepers have been chosen from a list of flowers. Well, there we go. Jinxed ships. One wonders. And is the term jinx or jinxed used as much today as when I was growing up? I wonder when the last time you heard somebody talk about a jinxed or being jinxed. Jinxes or bad luck or even good luck, who knows? You can find out lots about this sort of thing when you go to Trove at trove.nla.gov.au. Look up a jinx or two, because when you go there, or any online resource for newspapers from around the world, well, of course, you never know what you might find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast, and thank you for those people who continue to support the show via PayPal or Patreon at skepticzone.tv, where you can see all the show notes for every episode. And also, if you click the episode's link, you can do a search going back over 880 episodes for people who might have been interviewed or topics. Coming up on next week's show, part 2 of Adrienne's interview with Karen Bijkersma. And I think in the Trove segment we might be looking at alien abductions. Yeah, you don't hear too much about alien abductions anymore. Maybe the aliens got fed up. Or maybe they were fed up with humans. Or something. Those poor cows who used to get abducted. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for episodes and show notes with links going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone on Facebook, X, TikTok and YouTube by clicking the links at our homepage, together with links to support the show financially via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Skeptic Zone podcast or any other skeptical organisation.
Spirit dog Jewel, are you here again? Spirit dog Jewel. Oh, hello. Yes. Uh-huh. Are you Spirit dog Jewel? Are you looking for Psychic Penny? Psychic Penny's not here right now. It's just Adrienne. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Ooh, that was quite the statement. Mm-hmm. Spirit dog Jewel.